So today we're going to be looking at how to design our African style masks. The first thing we always do is put our names on our papers in here. So I'm going to put my name on my paper and then my class code. So that's going to be your homeroom teacher's initial and then your grade level, whatever your grade level might be. This box is the teacher check and I'm going to use that later. The first thing you will want to decide for your African style mask is what type of head shape do you want to use. Think about your head shape or look in one of the mirrors that we provided on your table and decide which shape is yours. After I've drawn my head, the next set of features that I'm going to think about when I'm on here are eyes, nose, and mouth. And remember, this is an African mask, so we want to keep it fairly simple, things that we can cut out of cardboard when we're thinking about cutting cardboard. So I think I'm going to keep my eyes sort of an almond shape on there. And then thinking about nose shapes. I know noses are kind of triangles, but they're also sort of like trapezoids. And then maybe I'll glue a couple circles on there for my nostrils. It does look a little silly when you're looking at your mask like this, when you're taking your face and making it into basic shapes. But that's what I really want you to think about. What kind of basic shapes is your face made out of? We're not going to focus on the super tiny details. We just want the bigger picture. And then if I want it to look like a particular animal, I have to figure out how to make that part of my mask too. Let's see, I think I'm gonna add in, I think I'm gonna go with an insect on mine because I like butterflies. So my butterfly shape is going to come out from behind my mask to look a little bit almost like hair, right? So I'm gonna have the butterfly's head, and then I'm thinking maybe I'll use some pipe cleaners to add in for the antenna later on. If it's a butterfly and it's grabbing onto the head, I might have some shapes like this that make it look like the legs. And I know maybe it looks a little bit creepy, but it adds some really cool shapes and patterns in there, doesn't it? So there's the legs that are hanging on. Maybe I went a little bit more down here on those bottom legs. Insects have 6 legs. Maybe I do want to add some hair. I can glue that to the back side of the mask, and then I can let that hair hang down. And I'm a pretty happy person, so I kept it happy to show my personality. I like to be creative and flutter around with different projects, so I had the butterfly in here. And that's what it asks down here. Explain what your mask shows about your personality. So I can say that it shows I am happy, that I like to flutter from idea to idea, and that I like to see the world. So I keep my eyes open. I'm not going to keep them closed, so I like to see the world. And I'm not going to worry about color quite yet. I'm just going to focus on the black and white part first. Now, the first thing to remember when you start moving over to cardboard is you'll need 2 or 3 pieces, and you'll need a pair of the larger scissors for this project. They're a little sharper and they cut through the thick cardboard a little easier than the small scissors. So kind of find the piece that's going to match up best with your shape for your head, and you're going to draw that head that you drew before kind of on that piece of paper. Once you draw it on there and you have it the way you want it, you're going to cut with the scissors. Now you'll notice I can't take big cuts in this cardboard. I have to do little cuts that aren't that big. So there's a lot of opening and closing of those scissors as I go around. Your hand will get tired during this part of your project. I'm being careful to keep my hand on the back side away from my scissors. And I'm following the line as much as I can. Like this. Now, it's getting a little trickier down here. This is a hard turn to make. It's pretty sharp, so what I'm going to do first is just snip off that piece, and then it makes it much easier for me to go around this corner when I'm cutting out the shape of my head. I'm going to do something similar for all the different pieces that are going to go on here. Another really cool thing you can do with corrugated cardboard, it has this inside. So if you want your mask to have extra texture, if you're really careful, you can actually get a hold of this and you can peel off the top layer. You peel off the layer. There might be extra layer underneath, depending on how thick it is. But see, it reveals this really neat corrugation part. So if you have patience, you can peel off that top layer. This really neat wood texture when I do that. Again, you can always leave it smooth if that's what you like as well. Now I'm going to work on drawing these other smaller pieces that are going to go on my mask. I'm always going to leave these next to each other so I can make sure I'm getting the sizes right. If you're going to use any of the raffia, usually you have to cut it into little pieces and then stretch it out a little bit, and then you can let it kind of wrinkle back up to get it to be fluffy. When you begin the process of hot gluing your mask together, you're going to want to start from those things that are furthest away and work your way forward. So things that might be considered background. I'm going to take these pieces off because this butterfly is really behind my mask. I'm going to have to glue it on that way. And you just want to do a little bit of glue. You don't want to get too crazy with the glue because you do want it to stick and we don't want to waste it. That one's going to glue that way, so it just needs a little squeeze there. Remember, this is the back side. I'm going to turn it over. It's going to look this direction when I'm done with it. I'm going to add the head right here. There's the head of the butterfly peeking over. And now I can work my way forward. So I can start adding in the butterfly legs. Oops, let's see, that one's going to go this way. For this next part, we're going to be using tempera paint cakes to put on our color layers on here. Hopefully you've been thinking about it and you've colored in your sheet with your ideas. We want to keep it to somewhat natural colors. So we're going to be painting your pieces of wood, which are really cardboard, with the colors that you're thinking about. Now, if you have things that are showing up on your brown, you might elect first that instead of using a color, you're going to start with like a white base on there, and then you might do layers. So when we use this paint, we get our brushes wet and as clean as possible, and then we mix, mix, mix in circles until it starts looking like there's paint there. And then if you have areas that have some of that black, you can cover them up and you'll let that layer dry, and then it will have a nice white layer to paint on instead of that black that's on there. So if you have some lines that are showing or some stuff on your cardboard you don't like, make sure you get a nice white base layer on there first to cover that up, and then we can go back over it with a color in a little bit. Like this one up here had some stuff showing that's not covering up with the red, so I can go through with the white and make sure I get that covered up more, and it'll dry, and then I can paint the red back on top and it won't show up so much. But you're always going to do For this next part, we're going to be adding some details using Sharpies. You'll want to make sure you're using a Sharpie that's darker than the color that you're writing on. And when we use Sharpies on top of tempera paint, we need to draw lightly. The harder you push, the less the less ink is going to show up. So draw nice and gentle with those Sharpies on top of the dry tempera paint in order to get it to show up. After that, we want to add some really colorful pieces of paper. We're going to be using our tiny cut scrap papers that are up in our buckets at the front of the room in the construction zone for this. And we're just going to cut out little shapes and details that will help enhance some of the things that are already on our mask. So for example, I'm going to take this little piece of green and add it on top of the darker green on my mask to really make those eyes pop out. I can cut these one at a time, or like I'm going to do here in a few seconds, I can fold my paper over and cut multiples at a time. For this next part, I'm going to show you how to do a 3D spiral. You take a circle and you turn it with your one hand while just gently closing the scissors slowly with your other hand. Pull it gently apart like this so it looks like a little spring, and you're just going to add glue down here on the tip. You don't need it anyplace else because the only thing you're going to push down is the tip of that on there, and it'll spring off the surface of your paper. Behind your mask, you can do a big fan of some sort. I am going to do it like a sunburst with some rays, so I'm going to cut out triangles with my textured paper. You can use any color paper that we have up there in the larger bins in the construction area or that your teacher provides, and you could do any shapes that you want to. Some people even like to do long rectangular strips that you can curl over with a pencil, kind of like a curling iron effect, and give it a curly mane. Again, I'm going to do the sun look effect. So I'm going to put these all across here, and then in the middle I'm going to do a spiral of glue, and I'm going to cut a circle of scrap paper out to glue on top of that. This is to reinforce and strengthen the back so that these pieces don't fall off or get broken off. So it'll just kind of cover it up right here like this. I can glue that down. I'm going to push firmly but gently because I have a lot of other things on the other side. And then I'm going to spread out the beams so that they're equally far apart from each other, just like this. And then when you turn it over, you can put it on the drying rack and you have a beautiful mask.